Now we have added this hello world and we printed it out. So I hope you were able to add another system out here like this, that print ln and add something inside, say hello or hey, I am a programmer, like that. Okay, you could add whatever you want. If you save and come up here and run, you should see hello world, but in conjunction we also should see the hey, I'm a programmer, right? Because what happens is we are reading from the top, start this one, and then once that is read, meaning the code is compiled and the system understands what this is, it will just write hello world, as you see here. And then for the next one, print ln, say hey, I'm a programmer. But also you notice the syntax is very interesting here because now we have these braces and all this sort of thing. So what that all means? Well, first of all, this means this is the entry point, like we said before. It's a method, right? So a method that is void, which means doesn't return anything. We'll talk about that later. But this method here is the entry point, and we have some parameters here inside which we don't care about at this point. But then we know this is a method because we have this parenthesis inside here, right? So we said main and then we put parentheses. Whatever is inside is parameters, right? So this is the entry method. Again, main is the entry point. That's the reason why it's called main. Now, we didn't really create this. We just invoked it, as you saw previously. Now, we also notice we have these braces here. These braces are very important because it says this is the block of code that will run anything inside of it. So meaning inside of this block of code here, which means this is actually the function. In fact, you can see at the top here, we can actually close it and you can see everything enclosed is then closed. If you hover over, then you see that snapshot there. Very handy. Okay, so if you open again, you can see that this is what delimits this void function main here. So whatever it's inside here is going to be ran first. And then we have, of course, when we call system out, print ln, we see here we have a semicolon. What does that mean? Well, that means the semicolon tells the compiler all of this work is being done in the background. So the semicolon tells the compiler that this statement is over. So we have completed the statement by saying, okay, semicolon, we're done. Whatever comes next is going to be a different statement. In fact, if we get rid of that, you notice that we're going to have an error. If you try to run even, it's going to give us some compilation error and a lot of different things that are happening. It says one error and even gives us an idea of where the error is, which is after the system out, println, it says here, we need to add something. So it tells us exactly where the problem is. All right, so then we have to put a semicolon there and go ahead and run again. We should be able to see those two prints. That's very good. Now, the next very important concept in programming, in any programming language, is the idea that we can actually create variables which can then be used, right? So what is a variable? Well, a variable, I like to think of a variable as a bucket in memory. Okay, so in memory, in computer memory, we have these small spaces, right, that allow us to actually put something inside of them. And the most important unit, if you will, most important something, quote unquote, will be a variable. So to create a very simple variable here in Java, we need to specify what kind of variable we're trying to specify. Now, the reason why is because in Java, things must be specific. Meaning, you must tell the compiler at all times what kind of buckets in memory you're creating. The reason being is because there are different kind of buckets, in this case meaning different kind of variables types, and each type is confined to hold one specific type. That is the reason why Java requires us to tell it in advance what kind of types of buckets we are creating to put things in them. So the first one is going to be string. Notice this is just a type, meaning it's a class, right? We'll talk about that later. So string is a type of a variable. So once you type string, saying, okay, the type of variable is string, we have to give it a name, right? So we created a bucket, but the bucket has to have a name so we can invoke it at a later time. I can say the bucket name is going to be name, like that. I can put a semicolon like that. And then if I went ahead and added it, if I wanted it to show something, get rid of that, or system it out, I'm going to say name as such. Let's save and see what's going to happen. Run. looks like name is just giving an issue. If you hover over here, variable name might not have been initialized. This tells us something else very important about variables, is that in this case here, all these variables, they must be initialized. We have to say, okay, there's a bucket and we have to initialize it, give it something, right? So to give it something, I can go ahead and say is equal to something empty, an empty string. This is a valid statement. If we save this and give it a quick run, we should see, hey programmer. In fact, I can go ahead and say // this is a comment, meaning that the compiler is not going to run this, it's going to ignore this line. Okay, if you save this and run again, we're going to see nothing. But there were no errors because this is valid, even though we just say nothing, right? So an empty string is indeed a string. Very interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let me just make it a little bit better here. I'm just going to say Georgina, as such, save, let's run again, and voila, we should see Georgina. So now what happens here? We created a name of type string, meaning the bucket now will hold only strings, right? And we set it to something, to Georgina. So anytime we want to refer to what is inside of this bucket, Georgina variable, we just call it, as you see here, and it prints out Georgina. All right, very simple. So that is the first very simple type in Java. So go ahead and create other variables that will hold, for instance, last name and so forth. Remember that the syntax here is always you put the type, we want the string, and the name. So this could be anything, could be last name, could be James, could be whatever you want, right? There's some limitations there, but you can put your name that you want here for this variable. And we need to set it to something. Okay, and then we can print it out. Go ahead and play with that concept. I'll see you next.